The guy comes out of the car with a handgun, holds them at gunpoint while he calls the police.
That's the best day on set?
Well, yeah, I mean,
This video is made possible by Squarespace. After it's over, learn how you can save money on your very first website or domain. Last month, I was invited to speak at the Orlando Film Festival, one of the biggest venues in the country for up-and-coming independent flicks. While there, I was treated to some amazing movies made by some amazing filmmakers, all of whom were looking for their big break. One such filmmaker was Jeremy Michael Cohen, the writer and director of YINZ, which was having its world premiere. YINZ ended up winning Best Screenplay, as well as the award for Audience Favorite in Narrative Features. It took Jeremy 10 years to put YINZ together. Features are always a challenge, and a first feature even more so. Since I'm gearing up production on my own movie next year, I've been trying to get as much advice as possible from folks who are pulling it off, and plenty of you are looking for that advice as well, so I sat down with Jeremy for a few minutes to get the skinny on what it takes to make a feature film. Check it out. Alrighty, so Jeremy, we're here at the Orlando Film Festival. You've got a film here, YINZ. It's a feature film.
it is.
I didn't get a chance to see it. I was doing a few panels, but I asked around what's sort of the best of the best, who should I talk to, and your name kept coming up, YINZ kept coming up. What's the film about?
So I describe it to people kind of in one sentence. It's like Fargo with high school kids. I think there's a lot more to it than that.
Right.
It's my first feature, and it's something that I've been gestating since I was probably about 22, 23, just started film school. Kind of want to tell a story about growing up and what if everything had just gone completely wrong. It kind of started as Reservoir Dogs with 16-year-olds, so there's going to be a bunch of best friends, this rich kids, parents were out of town for a long weekend. They kill somebody, and then they kind of duke it out, and their friendships fall apart, like kind of over racial and socioeconomic lines. I think it was just some of the dynamics that I'd lived out in high school, and then you add high drama to it, and eventually it whittled down from 7 friends to 3 friends. There's kind of a love plot line in there that gives us a nice love triangle, which kind of gives the person they're gonna kill an entry into the story. But that's where it all started.
So you had this idea in your early 20s?
Early 20s.
So how long did it take from idea floating around your head to sitting down saying, let me write a script?
I started writing scenes of it probably when I was 23 or so. And that some of that ended up in the final film. Some of it was completely scrapped. I probably did 10 or 15 real drafts of the story. The script was all done by the time I was, let's say, 30 or so, and we had something I could shoot, and then eventually we kept on tweaking as we got closer to production, based, around locations. I didn't really change anything based on the cast. We cast for the existing script, but, it took probably about 8 years from the time I started writing till we actually shot.
Yeah. What was the budget for the film?
About $100,000. So we
how did you crowdfund?
Raised 30 from Kickstarter, then raised chunks of money really in $5,000 and $10,000 increments from some family, some friends. We had some kind of in-kind investors, people who said, mark me down as X dollar investment and I'll give you $100,000 worth of equipment. And that really allowed us to make the film. I would say if you're thinking about going to make a film like this, make sure you have some work experience and go to the people you've worked with and you've rented stuff from, and kind of have a good, successful relationship with.
This is your directorial debut for features.
For a
Have
feature,
you made like shorts and things?
Yeah, so I went to film school at USC, and I took 3 years of classes. If you want to direct, there's kind of another year off, and you end up doing where you do a thesis film. So I did a couple shorts there that had festival runs. And then afterwards, I just I think like so many people our age, started working in various kinds of short branded content and commercials and whatever. I directed a bunch of that stuff, also produced. At some point, I was just like, I knew I wanted to make a feature. So I spent, right after film school, I was ADing a ton. I was working as a first AD, and I did, I think, 8 feature films as a first AD, just back to back to back to back, and then I line produced another one. And so that was like a second film school. So I'd worked with so many incredible people, made incredible relationships, most importantly learned mostly what not to do. I saw so many screw ups on so many films. I was like, dude, you can't do this. You can't fall into this trap. But I learned, how to schedule, how to budget, and also, as a first aid, you're standing next to the director all day. And then that's when I had the opportunity to work more in commercials. I was making some money, had some time to just put towards working on the film because I could buy myself some time. Basically.
How long did it take you to shoot?
We shot for 4 weeks, so we had 4 5-day weeks, 20 days, and then 1 day on either side. At the very beginning, there was a ton of snow. Shot a lot of the beautiful establishing shots of the town, some exteriors I know that we needed. Well, I wanted like the 3 feet of snow on the ground, and then at the end, we had 1 day. I got just a handful of pickups here and there. Cell phone on a car seat, gun on whatever kind of surface. So 22 days, which was an incredible luxury.
You had mentioned lots of mistakes that you had seen working for other people. What are some of the common mistakes that you see people who are making independent films commonly make, and how did you avoid them?
Number one mistake is not giving yourself enough time. So somebody says, what I really care about is this stunt or this VFX shot. So somebody budgets a day of, let's say, an 18-day shoot for something that's not that important for the story, and it gives them less time to end up actually shooting the story and working with the actors. Like, the number one thing you need to do is maximize the time with actors you have on set. Another thing I see all the time is when you have $100,000 or $50,000, even $500,000, you can't try to make a movie that looks like Star Wars because it's not going to happen. What you have to do is some kind of focus on the basics, tell the story really well, cast really, really well, but you can't try to make a big budget action movie. There's just certain production value that money buys, and you have to design your shoot around that.
Yeah. I see this all the time in that if you have a low budget, then if you embrace the fact that it's low budget and you actually adopt that as opposed to trying to imitate something with a much larger budget, because if you try and imitate it, it's just going to look even worse than if you had embraced the...
What I really did is I went back and studied first features. A lot of first features kind of happen in the middle of nowhere, a lot like ours did, because you can have the run of a town and people are excited for you to shoot in a school or shoot in a jail. Shoot in a real jail in LA would probably cost $25,000 for a day. Yeah. We got to shoot in a jail for several days for free, and we could kind of do whatever we wanted.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, along with that comes a lot of responsibility, because it's easy to have the run of the town when you're a small town and you get to film. They don't have that very often, but at the same time, you want to be as respectful as you can be with the sets and with the places you shoot, because you don't want to take advantage of people's goodwill and then be disrespectful and ruin it for the next guy who tries to...
That is 100% true. And what I do want to say is, if you are going to make an independent film, do be respectful, have insurance, make sure you have, whoever you are, go make a movie, but have a pro or two there, because those are the people that are going to say we just can't do this, or this is illegal, or this is going to be unsafe. A lot of my best friends are crew people, and they're put in really dangerous spots. Oftentimes, don't do that to somebody. You don't want someone to ruin the rest of their lives, or God forbid die for a small movie. So take it seriously and absolutely be professional about it.
Well, we were talking about these films that embrace the flawed edges. I always use this as an example. People laugh, but it's true. Napoleon Dynamite.
Absolutely.
It's a film that's very low budget.
Yeah.
But the fact that it was low budget allowed them to develop a very distinct look and style.
Completely.
That works for that film. If they had shot that like a high budget film, it would have been awful. How many folks did you have in total working during principal photography?
Oh, probably a crew of about 15 people every day. Most of our department heads were from Los Angeles, so people I had long history working with, did a really great job. We found a costume designer and a production designer and first AD from Pittsburgh, and the first AD did a great job and brought on some people he knew, but I would say it helps so much if there are people you trust, you can bring them to work on this kind of project.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, where'd you shoot it in? You
shot in my hometown. It's called Newcastle, Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
It's about 60 miles northwest of Pittsburgh.
So, all right, I got a fun little exercise I like.
Sure, let's do it.
I kind of think a lot about, especially when I made my first feature, I think of it in terms of specific days during filming that stood out. So first off, describe the worst day on set.
Oh man, I will tell you probably the worst day, and I think all the guys would agree. It was the three best friends, so it's Brad, Johnny, and Shane. It's their first scene together, and two of the guys had just gotten there the night before. So all these actors, these young guys, are from New York City, or at least like live in New York City and really used to that lifestyle. They show up at the Super 8 Motel in Newcastle on the edge of town the night before. They'd never been to a place like this. There's 3 feet of snow on the ground, and they're supposed to be lifelong best friends. And we hop into this kind of it's supposed to be both like funny and intense scene, and we probably shot the master 50 times. We just could not get the hang of it, and
just
eventually
chemistry?
It was just the chemistry, and it was so tough. That was number one, and eventually those guys were all incredible and completely work as best friends. Then there's another 2 days, so it's after the kind of big killing. There's this kind of big set piece in the middle of the film. And these 3 best friends, it's where the premise really plays out so much. And it's like a 1-act play. It's like about 20 pages of just 3 friends arguing, and just like they just kind of bare their souls and rip at each other's wounds that like they know so well. So 3 people, 1 camera, 20 pages, everyone's dancing around a dead body. And at the end of that was probably the most, I think all 4 of us would say the most taxing thing we've ever done, because just the blocking was really intense for me and the DP, keeping the eye line straight, figuring out how we were going to have masters that would both move around, where we were going to get coverage, where we were going to jump the line. Didn't really have a script supervisor, didn't have, people like taking care of continuity, so it was just in my head and in the actors to up to the actors, remember their blocking, bring it every time, do so many pages over and over, because we had 1 camera, and that was incredibly intense.
How did you overcome it? Like, everybody has these bad days, but that's the test of the filmmaker, is how do you...
You know what? I have just a couple things. Number one, you just do the work. Like that, whatever the hardest thing is, just do it, just do it. So we just did the work, and it was really exhausting. And there was that element of it, and I just have a really strict no drama policy.
Yeah.
So we're there to do the work, and these guys just brought it. They were pros. They loved it. They were doing what they loved. They believed in the script, so they gave it their all. We just dove headlong into it.
Yeah. Well, my attitude is always, if you're gonna have a really bad day where just everything goes wrong, just get through it and then leave that day in the past.
Yeah.
And you can't let that bad day ruin the rest of the experience.
And you can't harp on things. There's no use in complaining. You just kind of do it. We're shooting a movie in the middle of the winter with 15 people. It was going to be hard. Everybody knew what they signed up for, So, but it's fun. That's a challenge.
Yeah.
It's you're going to the best summer camp ever.
Absolutely. So in contrast to that, now that we've talked about the worst day, what was the best day on set?
Our last day, we shot the last scene of the movie.
Yeah.
And I think there was some, we were just firing on all cylinders. It was great. It was beautiful, and I wasn't going to allow myself to be sad because it was over. I was just happy that it had happened, and I knew we captured kind of incredible performances and pulled something off. The funny thing is, it's the best story from the show. There's this tiny little, Mindy brings her car home before Brad kind of admits everything to her. So there's a shot that's in the movie for about 2 seconds. Her car has to pull in. And I asked our department, hey, can you get this car a little dirty again? Last time we saw it had some snow on it. Producers came up and said, oh, we'll do it. It's the first time we're not so incredibly busy. It would be fun for us to go find some snow on the edge of town. Very long story short, my car got totaled out of this. They accidentally turned down a private road. Somebody was not happy that somebody was trespassing, so they took the giant Ford truck, T-boned into my car on purpose, attempted to really hurt them. My car was totaled. The guy comes out of the car with a handgun, holds them at gunpoint while he calls the police. So everything had basically gone perfect until lunch of the last day on set.
That's the best day on set?
Well, yeah, I mean, at that point, I was like, I was willing to sacrifice my car. I'd already driven it across the country. That was the bad thing that happened that day. The first bad thing that happened was on the last day of shooting, and I'm never going to forget that. And,
every director I talk to, when I ask what was the best day on set, everybody says the last day.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
when it was all over.
That feeling of like, wow, we did this.
Yeah,
exactly.
Especially if it's your first film. You're like, we got this, we finished it.
There's nothing I hate more than like, I hate like prematurely celebrating. I hate like panic. But like that last day when we're like, wow, this happened. We pulled off kind of the impossible.
Did you watch dailies while you were shooting it?
I did. There wasn't necessarily time to go back. We didn't have time to go reshoot any full scenes.
Just pick up something.
Yeah,
like that.
exactly.
Yeah.
I cut the film myself, so.
Okay, so how long did you wait till wrapping principal photography to go into actual editing? Did you decompress for like a month and then?
We did like maybe a 10-day drive back across the country. We had sent the drives back, so an assistant editor was syncing everything. Yeah. So by the time I got back, I could just get right back into It's
good though to take some time to just decompress and get yourself away from it before going back in.
I took probably about a year to edit the film, which I don't know if that was too slow or the right amount or whatever.
And it takes as long as it takes.
Exactly, but I had to keep making money, so eventually I would go produce a commercial every couple months, and that would give me like a week or two where my brain was out of the film. If you can somehow do that while you're in post, give yourself like a week or two away from watching stuff, your brain will solve some problems for you.
Sure. So it's out now. It's had its world premiere. It's got some very good feedback. What are your plans for the film going forward?
We're working on distribution stuff, and realistically, we'll have both a digital VOD and streaming. I think we just want to get the film out to the world quickly, let as many people see it. Think about some various ideas for like digital marketing, so I can drive people to the film. But it's been super cool.
Pick whichever camera you want. Give sort of a plug of how can people. Where do they go to learn more about the film?
Cool. I'm Jeremy Michael Cohen. Find me at Jeremy M. Cohen on Twitter or Instagram or jeremymcohen.com. You can find more about the movie at YINZmovie.com. Please give it a watch. Thank you guys so much.
Great. So before we go, one last question. What do you think it takes to make stuff?
It takes stick-to-itiveness to make stuff. Go set a goal of what you're gonna do and just do it. Be clever enough to get it done at however much money you have. Realize that your resources will affect the outcome, but just keep going. If you just keep going, great stuff will happen.
Congrats to Jeremy and the production team behind YINZ. Thanks to the Orlando Film Festival for putting on such an awesome event. I've been to a ton of these things over the years, and the hardworking volunteers and staff in charge of this festival made it one of the best I've ever been to. Volunteers are often the unsung heroes, so indulge me for a moment while I list them on screen. All of you dedicated your time and resources to making this event what it was, and it really couldn't have happened without you, so thanks. And special thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. If you've made it to this point, you're probably a creator looking to make something. Do you want people to see that something? Then you'll need a website. Luckily, Squarespace provides you with high-quality templates totally customizable so you can establish an online presence for your movie, or music, or painting, or business, or whatever. Video, audio, images, text, and even an online storefront so you can easily set up shop and start getting your work out there. You can get started today by going to squarespace.com to start your free trial. And when you're ready to launch, head over to squarespace.com/AustinMcConnell to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.